Call the Town Plan and Zoning Commission meeting of February 14th to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll have the Secretary read the roll.
Chairman Aida.
Here.
Commissioner Camillo.
Here.
Commissioner Claffey. Commissioner Fox.
Here.
Commissioner Payne.
Here.
Commissioner Sobieski.
Here.
Commissioner Woods. Commissioner Vitalica. Commissioner Braverman. Commissioner Jangrave.
Okay. We have a quorum. We have 5 members here. We don't have any alternates, so we won't be sitting anybody for the people that are missing. I got an email from Commissioner Braverman is sick. Steve Woods is out of town, and Claffey, I believe he had a conflict from the beginning with the date when we set the things, and I said, well, you know, it is what it is. So that's why they're not here. Okay, approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add one item under Town Planner Report. Bond reduction for Harvest Ridge subdivision at Shady Hill Lane.
There's a memo in front of you on the table, but the planner will explain it when we get to that item. Is there any questions on the change to the agenda?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so is there anything else?
No.
Public participation on items that are not listed on the agenda. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Anyone? Zoning Enforcement Officer's report.
Do you want to do the signs first?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Test drive?
Yep. Town planner. Temp sign applications. I guess we can do Karma's Closet. First one's Karma's Closet. The application. And then this one.
Let me see if I can rotate it. Down there. Okay. There we go. Okay.
She's here if you want to call her up.
We have additions to the sign. We're going to take up some signs, some temporary signs. We have an application from Karma's Closet. If the applicant is here, come forward, state your name and address for the record, and make a presentation. Mike, would you take this thing out of the way? This clock
I thought you guys
thing.
had some new.
Yeah, you got 3
Fun
minutes
toys
to
to
make your
play with.
presentation.
Just move it out of the way, or put it on the floor, or do something with it. Throw it away.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Deanna Rainey, 110 Grandview Drive, Newington. I'm not trying to pull anything or, do anything that doesn't go against the regulations that you guys have passed in the last few months. So this is a sign that I've had up for honestly a really long time. It's something that you can't even see from the road. I have gotten permission from the landlords, the people that own the property, and the business that it technically would be right out in front of. It's something that has greatly helped my business. To be really honest with you guys, about 5 years ago, I opened up my business in that back corner of McBride Carpet, and the business that's next to me is there maybe an hour out of the day, and all the other businesses are a lot further away. So this is something that greatly helps my business. I would also like to say if Sprint does have a sign, or they, decide to put a sign out, this would be taken off and put, outside my door. So that's been discussed with them. That's been told to the McBrides. They know exactly what's going on. So I hope that kind of explains it.
You have a site plan that shows exactly where you want to put it?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't have a scan of one, though. She was in this morning. Basically, she's obtained permission from Sprint and the building owner to have the sign at that corner in front of Sprint's location in lieu of Sprint having a sign. And I didn't digitize the site plan for the scan this morning.
I saw it, I didn't see a problem with it. I'm glad that you're in. I think that's nice that Sprint worked with you, and,
Yeah, absolutely.
and, if later on Sprint's interested in doing something, you could always share one too.
Yeah.
But I have no problem with this.
And I just wanna, I know it's hard to see on the scan, but the building owner, and the bottom line here is signed by the Sprint. When she was in this morning, I told her she should have Sprint sign it since it's in front of, since technically we'd be giving Sprint the permission for the sign. So it's, I don't know his name, but it's, you mentioned it to me, the manager of the
I
store.
don't have the copy with his name
they're
on
on
it,
board.
and I can't read it from here, but he's the store manager of Sprint.
I'd like to, I don't have a problem with you moving it to another spot if the other tenant doesn't have a problem and the landlord doesn't, but I'd like to see the location that you want to put it.
Sure.
I wish we had a site plan so I could just see, it's on the sidewalk, where basically is it?
Yeah, so the, front of McBride's building is L-shaped.
Yeah, and then when you're
and
going around the
on-
corner to her
it's a-
store.
Yeah, and if you were at her store and walking towards the front of the building, it's just around the corner, closer to Sprint. And it's set to the side so you could still walk around it and everything. I saw it, it's in a safe location.
There's an overhang, I think, the
Yes.
building, the
Has it
sidewalk.
been there for a while?
Yes,
I've actually had it there.
yeah,
for a
it's
I haven't
hard
even
to see.
Yeah, it's hard
It's hard to see.
Yeah,
I have no
And you
problem with
remove,
that.
and you bring it inside at night.
every day.
Yes,
I carry it. I want to put wheels on it.
that's a good idea.
There is a good idea.
Okay, you realize you have to come back in 3 months, come to the counter, talk to zoning enforcement officer, tell it if you want an extension, and you won't have to come back, but he'll report to us. And
You
if
got
there's
it.
no problems, we'll probably give you an extension and let you continue to have it.
You got it. Just a question, if I change the sign, like, do you need an updated picture?
You mean
If I-
the message, the
No,
content?
like if I buy an actual, that's a chalkboard, whiteboard, which I like, but if I end up getting the standard A-frame, do you need a new
Bring
picture
it
of
in and
it?
show it to show the enforcement officer. If he
Okay.
has, he'll let me know if there's a problem. And if there's
Absolutely.
not, he'll let you make the change,
All right,
okay?
I appreciate it.
I'm glad to hear that it's helping.
It definitely helps, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to act on these as we do them,
Good idea.
okay. Any questions from the commissioners?
On the report here?
Yeah, on this.
Oh, no, no.
Application.
No problem.
Questions? No? Okay, someone make a motion.
Entertain a motion that we approve that temporary sign.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you're good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in. We appreciate that. We're trying to get everybody to comply. We're not here to try to make it hard for, we just want compliance from all of the people. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking to make money off of this or for the town. We're looking for compliance for the businesses, and this is a good example. Okay, you got another one?
50 Market Square,
Okay, go ahead.
he's gold. I think he's here, yeah.
Okay, we have another temporary sign, 50 Market Square. State your name and address for the record and the name of your business.
It's Robert Kuziak, 50 Market Square. It's Casey's Golden Collectibles. And yeah, as you can see, it's signed, it's on our actual property. It's on the mulch area by the main entrance to the parking lot.
Can you speak closer to the mic?
Oh, yeah, so to the main entrance to the parking lot. We have a side entrance. It's not the front of the building, so we're on the side of the building, so it's hard to see our actual door. So that's why we have the sign at the parking lot entrance.
Do we have a picture of the building?
I'm gonna try to get that.
And we're gonna see, you didn't bring a site plan either, did you?
No,
No.
it didn't.
This is the site plan that we have on file.
That's from Market Square into the back parking lot, that driveway?
Yeah, we have our own parking spot. There's probably like 8 spots to the sites right next to the Edward Jones.
You're in the back.
Right.
You're
Yeah,
not
so
on Market Square, you're in the back.
Okay, good, that's what I was looking for, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up an
figure out
overlay. The plot plan, the site plan is really, really old, so it didn't really do much. So once we get this loaded.
Show the aerial photograph.
Yeah, if that would be helpful.
Yeah.
You gotta Google it. I forgot something, thanks. So your entrance is off the parking lot in the back?
right.
Oh, okay, so you're not, okay. No,
So-
you're not on Market Square itself, you're in the back.
So the front of the building is on Market Square. You have to kind of walk on the side.
Yeah.
And then, like where French's Travel, it's
Yes.
the same door. Yeah, it's the same door.
Now I know where you are.
Oh, his entrance is here.
Right, yeah, right there. So our sign
Is where?
is right there,
Yeah.
right in front of the entrance of the parking lot.
Can it be moved, can it be moved closer to the building?
Well, if it's close to the building, then it kind of defeats the purpose of someone being able to drive by. Everyone drives by and can't find us. That's why we kind of have it on that mulch area.
I wonder if you have additional
Oh, so that's
signage
actually perfect right there.
available on this building, and maybe you could, hang additional signage from the building somehow.
We do have a sign. You could actually see it right to the right of the tree, but the tree blocks it. So,
Right there.
yeah. So when someone's driving down the street, they can never find us. They keep on going back and forth. So right where that sign is in the mulch, that's where we have that sign. So it's probably right there, yeah. So it's not on the sidewalk, it's on the property.
Can you
And-
go this way with the,
Towards Main Street?
I wanna be able to see that portion of the building. Yeah, that's it, like this. If it's where that downspout is, that would be better.
You put it in here.
It's 5 feet from the door, it's not next to the entranceway, and you'll be able to still see it from the street.
Can it be moved to, like, closer to the road, possibly? Where it wouldn't
No,
block?
no.
Then you're on someone else's property.
Then you're on the town land,
Then
right
you're
there
on
on
the-
the sidewalk.
Right,
Then you're not on the
our
parcel
own
that you're
property.
You're only-
renting or owning.
If it's on the mulch area, you're only 4 feet the sidewalk, and then it's the street,
okay.
right there.
See, the regulations specifically say 5 feet from the door.
The problem with your sign hanging is that it's sideways. It should be almost mounted, it should be turned, so that you could see it when you're, you know what I mean?
Right.
You might have a problem with that, cause there's a walkway, somebody would walk into it, see that walkway in front of the car?
I didn't want it, I want it on the mulch by the downspout, not on the sidewalk. I suggest putting it right here.
Well, I thought you were referring to one on the building.
The one on the building, actually, because it's hanging like this.
Right.
It probably should be turned, so that you can see it from the road more.
You mean sub-mounted to the building, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, instead of hanging from the building, maybe move it, but as far as this A-frame there, instead of the entranceway, I think you'll still be able to see it from the mulch area there. I don't think, provided,
It would be a problem if we put the A-frame in front of that tree, because you're talking about,
You're getting off of your property. See, where the last one that we just talked about, that's all one big piece of property that
Well,
that's why we allowed her to move her
Right.
sign up.
but that is our property. The mulch area in front of that tree?
Here?
Yeah.
yeah.
That's all the tenant's property, all that mulch area.
The problem with that is now we're 5 feet, we're more than 5 feet from the door.
I think your only option is to put it where the downspout is.
Does it get moved in every day?
Yeah, every day.
Okay.
Yeah. It's out for, we're only open Tuesday through Saturday, so about 6 hours a day.
Any questions from the commission? Any concerns?
Okay. That's fine.
Well, it looks like to make a decision for you, you have to put it where the downspout is, 5 feet from the door. That's what the regulations call for.
I don't, by putting it by the tree, I don't see it solving much more. I mean, you're still gonna be able to set it either direction. You'll be able to see it. It doesn't appear like anything's blocking it if it's on that side by where that pipe comes out.
Well, what happens is when people are coming from Market Square, from Main Street down Market Square.
Walking?
No, driving.
Yeah,
Or walking, generally, they could see it, but when they drive down, that tree kind of gets in the way of at least the smaller signs. French has got actually a bigger sign, so they're able to see that pretty clearly. So even that is kind of blocked by that tree also.
yeah.
So that's kind of
Now,
why
is
we
that
were,
the town tree to trim, or is that the town tree, or?
I'm guessing it's on our property, on that property.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Town probably owns, town might own up to the building or something, who knows?
I asked the tenant, and he says that, according to him, that the mulch is his property.
Okay.
Is it?
It looks like the building is 10 feet, 10 and a half feet from the property line. So,
The curb, the tree,
yeah, so,
right before the sidewalk. They own that mulch area. Yep. Why don't you try it out on the curb area and see how that works out? You could probably, it looks like with some tree trimming and modifying your signs, you might even have a little extra sign space. I don't know. It's hard to tell. You'd have to analyze the sign space. Maybe we could modify your permanent signage. In other words, the one that's over your space over there, maybe that could be bigger lettering or something. You never know. I mean, it might be worthwhile for you to meet with the zoning official and have him double check the measurements and work with him and maybe have an opportunity to change your permanent signage.
Where's the other sign? It's on the wrong side, right?
well, there's a sign here.
Is that blank?
They've just, I think Google may have blurred it out, I don't know.
No, that is blank.
It's a
I
blank sign?
think, my understanding that that's a lit sign, and I guess that's against the rules, I'm
No.
guessing.
No.
For some reason, there was some objection to that sign, I believe, but
Well, it's
I
on the
could double
building.
check.
Objection from who? From the owner of the property?
No, I thought there was a problem with that sign with the city, I'm not
That's
completely
big.
sure.
That's a good sized sign right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no prohibition in the zoning regulations for an internally lit sign. Signs mounted on the roof of a building are prohibited. So maybe what we would look at is taking the sign down and using that signage elsewhere on the building with an allowable sign. Maybe put something on the side of the building here, we could look at that.
It's also up there anyway.
Yeah.
You know,
It is. It's still up there, it's not doing
it's up there and it's not doing any good there. It's no name on it.
Okay, our recommendation is gonna be that, to the commission, my recommendation is that you place the sign in where the downspout is and see how it works out. I mean, you're talking a distance of maybe 10 feet from where you ideally would like to place it to where this is. You're getting the same exposure. Because if you put it in the thing by the tree, you're still gonna be blocked when you're coming from the east going west. You're still gonna be blocked by the trunk of the tree. if you would like to work with the zoning enforcement officer to look at your signage for the complete building, you could do that.
Okay.
You just call me and we can go over it anytime.
Any questions from the commissioners?
Is there parking in front of that sign?
In which sign?
Well, is there a parking space in front of where you want him to put the sign?
Yes.
There's a
So
spot there.
if the sign, and I'm just throwing this out there, if the sign is put in that area there and a vehicle parks here, oversized vehicle, like a pickup truck or something, you're not gonna be able to see the sign there, am I correct?
That's why we're asking them probably to come back and modify the existing building signage, but you can't have it, he wanted it way over here by the,
I understand, Commissioner Payne, I'm just asking the question, that's what I was at.
it's obvious it might get blocked, yeah.
It will get blocked. And, cause that's a lot of people who go to the front businesses, they park in the front right over there.
But putting it down by the entranceway, right by the street, is
But
like,
it won't be by the street,
it's right off the sidewalk, it's 5 feet from the road.
okay.
So if you put it right by that sign there, that's way out of what our regulation is.
It's
That's
about,
like
it's about
somebody on the
15
Berlin
feet.
Turnpike putting it 5 feet off the Berlin Turnpike almost.
It's probably about 15 feet, possibly. And it's still on our property.
We're being lenient because we're actually, technically, it's supposed to be 5 feet from a doorway, and the entranceway. So I thought we were being a little lenient by allowing it at the corner of the building, which is only 5 feet off the building. There is no doorway there, and we're, you know,
Well, I think it was similar to what you just did for Karma's Closet.
similar, the other door is
As long
there.
as I think you said it was French's.
Another tenant.
As long as the tenant in that space has no objection, then in a sense, just like with Karma's Closet, we're giving that tenant the sign permit.
Yeah,
Well, I don't think his door is there either. It's on the side too, I think.
yeah, it's a little farther away. We're,
No, his,
over here, that's the door?
no, that's the door to the attic.
oh,
Oh, well, where's this business's front door?
I always see him walk in, there's another door right next to next to our door. But there actually you know what, there might be another door to the left, see, right to the left of the attic door.
Oh, you mean?
Yeah, there might
Right,
be,
yeah, just
I think there might
inside.
be a door, yeah, oh, yeah, there is.
yeah, there it is.
Oh, okay. Well, that's really then, that's where we need to be 5 feet from.
I think we were being generous.
You're generous is a generous description. You're really then kind of losing the 5 foot requirement. Yeah, even near the downspout, I thought there was a door there, but if the door is around
Or,
the building,
or
then
you
that's.
could, or you could move it halfway down in front of that little plant there. Does that help, or does it make it worse moving it down, or does it make it better? Does it?
It could work, you know.
I mean, the regulations provide for signs to be on town-owned sidewalks, provided that they're obtained permission from the town manager and proof of commercial liability insurance is shown. So he could have
So
it.
he could actually put it on that
could put it
tree
here.
there, right next to that tree there or something on the sidewalk.
Yeah, as long as it didn't impede pedestrian flow, and we could get an agreement for proof of liability, commercial liability.
Yeah, just a proof of liability insurance.
Well, but
How would that
that's-
help?
But that's still much more than 5 feet from even the door of whatever that business is.
From here to here, I mean, that's as close
Yeah.
as it,
Yeah. Well, let's not be too tactical here.
I mean, we could certainly check it between
Yes.
now and then, but,
As you wish.
I mean, that's an option.
Would that be better there for you?
Yeah.
Okay, if you could provide the town with a certificate of insurance, hold harmless or whatever is necessary.
I could,
Want to work with the
Sure.
Yeah.
town staff?
Okay.
So exactly where are we putting the sign? Show me. Show me.
Mike?
well, do you wanna wait and do it in 2 weeks, once we have all that and taken care of, or do you wanna do it now?
You suggested having it right here, is that correct?
I mean, then we're basically, if we put it in this area, we're applying the same logic you did with Karma's Closet.
Correct.
Well, the problem,
But we could, I mean, we could verify all this for the next meeting.
If you put it next to the curb, that's a parking space. People are gonna open their doors into it. So, unfortunately, where he really wanted to go originally,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's right by the curb. It works because it's
and
right
it's
by the
not in
entrance.
the way of anything because you can't have, there's no parking space on the end there by the pole. It stops right about there.
Well, yeah, but that really oversteps. I think the town
Is that
staff,
town property?
I think the town staff should, go over to the site and try to work with the business owner and try to get something for our next meeting that works.
Try again and come back in 2 weeks.
Okay,
Will you work with him and he'll help you find the right location that works?
Sure.
That complies with the regulations or close to the regulations?
you all set, Mike?
And
I'll get in touch with you
Yeah.
at the time.
in the
That's enough.
yep.
Work with the zoning enforcement officer to come up with a location that's satisfactory to the commission.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay. That's, those are the only two, temp sign applications we have. Before we get into a couple of other things, you'll see I have the report here. At the last meeting, we talked about temporary signs and we identified 25 or so tenants, that are locating signs without permits, so those notices were sent out, so that's why there's a lot of temp signs on here. I have had in the neighborhood of a dozen businesses contact me and want to start the process to go forward and get signs approved through you guys. One of the things that they had asked is either because of conflicts with staffing their businesses and other, they were interested in you guys discussing or thinking about allowing staff to present the applications on their behalf. So I basically have a list of those that I'll be touching base with. If you guys want to discuss that, I know it's been brought up before. But some of them live out of town or they're actually working at this point in time. So the idea would be basically that if they met all the requirements, we would present all the information and then get in touch with them and give them, the first 3 months. And then we would come back and discuss it after that if they looked for a renewal. The only difference would be Craig or I would make the presentation instead of the applicant.
But the commission would still make the decision.
Correct.
That would, I think that would streamline the application process for the businesses. I think that it falls within the purviews of what we approved as a sign regulation. We're looking for compliance, and this is a way for them to comply. I would like to go ahead and let them do it. Not like an instance where you have this instance that we just had. That would not be an instance where the staff would present it because there's an inherent problem with the location.
Want a motion to that effect? You want a motion to that effect?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Make a motion that, to streamline the process, the staff does the, initial intake, gets some stuff prepared and presented to the commission for final approval.
Motion made in second. Comments? I have a comment. Where was I going with this? We just want to make sure that, that when they bring it in, that we either have a site plan or we have some pictures that give us a real good idea of where it's gonna be. I would prefer to see a site plan, but if it's not, if they had several pictures that can designate the area, we would consider that a site plan. I don't wanna make it too hard on them because, we're just trying to get them to come in and make their application. So if you could get a site plan, that would be the best. If not, then pictures would suffice, but you'd have to bring in enough pictures so we could locate it,
We could do that.
okay? So under those conditions, any
Was
other?
there a second?
Yes, there was.
Second was,
Questions?
No, I just wanted to tell you, Mr. Chairman, I think this is a nice method to help the businesses that don't have the time to come in, and I think this is great that you were able to achieve this with the zoning enforcement officer. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that's gonna be the procedure that we follow. If they wanna come in, you know.
Sure.
I would encourage them to come in, but if they can't, then you guys can make the presentation. Okay. Anything else, Mike?
Yeah, can I have the only other thing, I know that we've talked about it, you know, at three separate meetings now, but I wanted to go over really quickly, again, the McDonald's site. I was reading through the minutes, and I want to make sure that everybody understands what, at least from my perspective, what the problem is with the site. I went out again, and I can't remember if I reported it at the last meeting, but there is some striping that is missing that they're going to be doing. They should have striped a do not enter onto the actual exit. But what I did is I went out and I took a video. I think that there may be some folks that think that the issue is that people are mounting the island when they're making that turn. They're not mounting the island. And so I actually have got, I took a photo, and I'm just gonna see if I can very quickly slideshow. I'll just play it. Hopefully it will play. So this is like probably just after lunchtime. The road is just so wide that people can make that turn without any problem. They don't
So
mount.
those two people did illegal turns?
Yes, yes. So,
That guy over there, Mike, went right over the island.
which one?
The last one?
Last car, that's.
Yeah, he might have clipped the little corner there, but I was there for like 15 minutes, and probably a dozen cars turned in. They don't clip the island. You can make that turn.
Mike, okay.
So basically, the entrance there is too wide.
The road, because Robbins narrows right there, it's so wide, they have such a wide area to come in and hook around.
The island isn't designed properly then.
Well, it was designed as proposed, but yeah, I mean, the distance between here and here is wide enough.
Wide.
So what they're gonna do is right here, they're gonna stripe, the other issue is that large vehicles come in this way. So they're gonna stripe do not enter, right here. That was part of the plan. This island will be painted, and you can actually see where they had a sign there for like a minute.
And there's a piece of, there's like a bolt or something sticking up if a
And
car
a breakaway is, breakaway.
Right here.
that broke off.
Yeah.
It could puncture a tire that
Yeah,
goes over.
they had a do not enter sign there, no left turn sign there, and it wasn't even up 2 days.
They put the kind that break away.
Yeah.
They make some that actually, when you gets hit, it bounces back up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that would be better.
So and the other thing that they've done since I took this photo is right here, they have a sign that says, it's got an arrow facing out, and it says do not enter. So when you're coming down the way, you actually are looking this way and you see something that says do not enter. I don't know that it's gonna help, but what I did talk with them about, and I think I talked with you guys about it at the last meeting, this is the view that make it a little bit bigger. No, it's not gonna do it.
Mike, wasn't that, if I remember, Commissioner Minor was sitting here, and we were gonna elongate that island so you couldn't make a left turn? They were supposed to reconstruct that island? I think that was in the minutes, remember?
The island that's there, that's in that photo, is exactly what was proposed in the site plan mod. Because I went out with the engineering department and we measured we checked all the distances, they checked the radiuses, everything is as it's.
And it is a lot longer, that horn, let's call it. It does extend to the east a lot further than what was originally brought in through that process.
Because
But even as long as it is, the opening is still so wide that cars can make a U-turn.
Yeah.
But the other thing too, there was supposed to be do not enter signs sub-mounted on the back of the stop signs. if I'm not
I checked the
mistaken.
plans, that's not on the
I thought,
proposal.
you checked the minutes, I thought I had requested
The
that.
checking the minutes and checking the plans are two different things, because there's a lot of things that are said around this table that don't get on the plans.
And the
So
other-
when they're not on the plans, it doesn't exist. We could talk about making them, we could talk about
Right.
asking them to do all kinds of things in the meeting. Unless you make sure that it's on the plan, it's not gonna get done. Just
Right.
like the elongation of the island. We might have talked about it, but it never got put on the site plan. The signs was never put on the site plan.
I thought they had said that they were gonna modify it after we had passed it, and they were gonna fix it. But the other part I seem to remember, somebody was supposed to get a hold of the DOT and put in, remount that no left turn sign in front of the pole. Cause where it is now, you don't see it till you're almost on top of it.
Yeah, that, you can you can
And that
just
has to be
about
done
see
by
it
an,
here.
by an elected official in the town of Newington.
Yeah.
Call the SDC, state, DOT traffic section, ask, them to resubmit that sign.
I think the issue lies in, once they make their exit from the turnpike and they wanna go to McDonald's, they're more or less committed. And they don't really have an option if they're not from town, they don't, you know, so my feeling is that the landscaping that's there really prevents them from seeing that this entrance is here when you're coming south. So I think I mentioned it the last time, we're gonna monitor this through the spring, and if in the summertime this still is an issue, I think what we're gonna do is see if we can get them to do something with the directional sign that says enter, because you can't see it. This is, you know, before any of this is grown, and this sign is behind it. So when you come down the turnpike, you don't see that this driveway falls off, you know, it drops off because of the grade. And so people are making that turn onto Robbins, and then they're making a left turn when they can enter the site right from the turnpike. It would be easier. So I think we need to see if,
Make a bigger sign there and a little taller.
right,
And it's, narrow. Yeah.
right. So when we talked with Bowler, they said that they would be happy to have that conversation and do what they could to improve the functionality of that entrance, rather than throwing this time and energy at an entrance that is got problems. So we're just gonna see what happens. We talked a little bit about even doing something temporarily to see if it made it better, and then trying to come up with a permanent solution. So stay tuned on that, but I just wanna make sure everybody was on the same page. And hopefully, that's all I have.
Any questions for the zoning enforcement officer?
Yes, I
Or
do.
on this on this,
I happen to be going by the turnpike today, and I see where the new Citgo station, or the new, gas station opened up. Somebody sub-mounted a Coca-Cola sign on the SDC sign out there, speed sign, cardboard sign sub-mounted on there.
I left him a voicemail about a coffee sign that was mounted.
That there, Green Mountain sign, that's what it was, Green Mountain
Okay.
Coffee sign.
Okay, yeah,
And-
I forget his name, but I left him a voicemail about it.
And I see they've done the same thing on the northbound side where somebody's put a for rent sign sub-mounted to another state sign in front of where the old Hoffman's gun was.
I did not see that one.
It says rent $300 per month for office space.
doesn't the state DOT monitor their own signs? No?
No, not unless not unless somebody makes a complaint.
Okay, make a complaint.
Yeah.
Let them take care of their own signs.
Okay.
DOT signs. That's all I have.
Anything else you want to bring up to the zoning enforcement officer? Anybody?
124 West Hartford Road. Have you been on that property?
120.
It's not familiar to me by address name.
You've received a complaint, and, probate. The house appears not to be fit to live in,
If I is that on the,
right on the corner.
yeah,
Going
we
north.
sent a notice, and the relative of the ownership of that property said that the person who lived there had passed away and the vehicles were in probate, and once that was taken care of, they would be removed. I don't think anybody's living there.
Okay.
But, yeah, it's a ranch on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, so, because, my understanding, I don't really know much about probate, but I don't know how much leverage he really has to get any titles for that, so,
6 months, whatever, they gotta go through probate,
so, we're just kinda waiting on that.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay. Remarks by commissioners? Any remarks at this time? Public hearings, we have one open, the, dog sitting on Indian Hill. Is there any, that's still open as an item, right?
Correct. It's in hibernation, but it is still technically open, yes.
Since it is open, do you think that we could gather some information from the surrounding towns, Berlin, Farmington, Glastonbury, West Hartford, as many towns as we can on how they handle their dog regulations, and if they've had the experience of anybody proposing something in a residential zone?
Yes, actually, I've already started doing that, and I'll present that information when the hearing officially reopens for comment, and I'll and I'll forward it to the commissioners and to the applicants before the hearing is opened, or resumed, or whatever the technical
Well,
term
can
is.
we have it before, since it's open, once you give it to us, you could give it to the applicant, so we have it before the meeting, so we can read it in
Right, that's what I
time?
meant. Yes,
Okay.
I will definitely do that.
Thank you very much.
Any other items on that notification?
Yeah, that was the other thing. Thank you for reminding me, Mr. Chairman. I have a concern, how we are gonna notify the people properly for
Are we
this.
talking about the pending home occupation permit or the new text amendment application
Text
that's,
amendment
that we'll be discussing later tonight
Okay,
under
I'll discuss.
applications received for scheduling?
I'll talk about it afterwards. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so there's no other public hearings on the agenda. Approval of minutes of January 24th.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any corrections, alterations? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? New business, petition 0118. You want to read that, Mike?
Petition 01-18, site plan approval at 3443 Berlin Turnpike, Garrett Homes LLC applicant, Edward S. and Laura Surmet, owners, Michael Sullivan, P.E., 355 Research Parkway, Meriden, Connecticut, contact.
Is the applicant here? Want to come forward, state your name and address for the record, please, and make a presentation as to what you're looking to do on this property.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. My name is Mike Sullivan. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut and representing the applicant. I work at BL Companies in Meriden, Connecticut. So we've made a submittal to the town for a proposed commercial redevelopment of the property. We have an application also in front of the Wetlands Conservation Commission. We've had a few preliminary meetings with town staff, the engineering department, and we are still awaiting comments from them on site layout, infrastructure, et cetera. We did have a preliminary meeting on January 23rd and provided a revised set to the town engineer. We're still waiting for those comments. In summary, we're looking at a redevelopment of the existing property with a 7,200 square foot commercial building. What's proposed is 28 parking spaces. In discussion with the town planner and the town engineer, we would like to review that with you, particularly in discussion about landscaping, activities on site and within the building setback. We had submitted initially a plan with 2 driveways, as the existing site has 2 curb cuts. We also have had preliminary comments back from the DOT. We had sent them a set of plans so they could get started looking at the encroachment permit process, and they encouraged that we remove the northern driveway, which we have done.
Okay, these plans that we have in front of us don't reflect.
Those are the original plans, right?
Yes.
There are a couple of changes. The major one, though, is the driveway change. There's some change of the drainage in the back, but otherwise it's pretty much the same design.
It is in general, yes.
Okay, the area that you plan on, in the 35-foot setback or setback area that you plan on using or driving over to make the site utilized.
Yes.
Now, what kind of, we're looking for a grass stone type of a pavement, not a permanent pavement. We want to be able to see the grass. We want it green.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can I speak to that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, during the preliminary meetings we had with the applicants back in the late 2017, we discussed a number of different materials to comply with the requirement that there be no paving or a pavement. I think that's the word that the regs use, no pavement in the setback area. And at that time, I suggested that the applicants consider some kind of porous material which can be driven over. And it's technically not pavement because it wouldn't be bituminous. It would be pavers of some sort. And with the idea then, but that would still have to be acceptable to the commission. And what I in hindsight, what I suggested to the applicants that they consider are pavers that are pressed, they're kind of a concrete material that are close together with little gaps in between with stone dust so water can infiltrate. That was what I initially implied to them. What I was thinking was the kind of grass pavers that they have at West Farms Mall, but which would actually have grass growing up through the holes in the pavers themselves. But that apparently was not anything that the tenant could live with. The tenant that would not work for the tenant's trucks to be able to drive over. So what the applicants are proposing are pavers, which are porous, which water could infiltrate down through, which doesn't violate the regulation, which prohibits paving. It's up to the commission how they want to interpret it, and it would be appropriate for the commission, if they choose to find that this complies with the letter of the regulation, and then the application can proceed. But my understanding is, and Mr. Sullivan will articulate that the tenant really needs to be able to drive larger, substantial vehicles over the area that's being shown as pavers.
The type of block that's used at West Farms Mall can withstand large trucks and everything. It's a matter of what the base is underneath. So I think that type of block with the grass growing out of it is exactly what we were looking for.
Yeah, if we make it a impervious surface that's not green, then we're from the street, you're not getting your 35-foot green space. And this site already is lacking in landscaping, as I look at first blush when I look at it. So we want that 35 feet. We want it to look like, when you look at it from the Berlin Turnpike, we want it to look like there's grass from the turnpike all the way to the property line, and from the property line 35 feet back into the site.
Well, to that point, Mr. Commissioner, if I may.
Yeah.
Yes, we also, in discussion with the town engineering staff and realizing that this is somewhat of a concession or a middle ground to be able to have the ability to navigate the delivery vehicles and to make that turn, essentially a 180-degree turn off of the Berlin Turnpike. We have added significant other features to the front of the storefront, if you will, including a rain garden that virtually stretches across that entire frontage. So there will be the appearance, as you say, from the road, that there is a grass area. And indeed, the current configuration of the site, which I'm sure you're aware, and we acknowledge that it's in violation of, the DOT right-of-way and the existing regulations, but with what we're doing here, we're eliminating 12 encroaching parking spaces. That's essentially about 2,000 square foot of pavement. But basically, from the 35-foot setback line to the street, we're converting approximately 7,500 square feet of pavement to lawn. And the necessity that we're looking at here is just to be able to. Another thing we talked about with the town engineer's office. Exploring the permeable paver avenue and setting aside the material that it might be and what might be acceptable to the commission. We talked about that when customers are coming to the facility and they pull in to park at the front of the store that faces Berlin Turnpike, they're going to be confronted with sort of a multimedia driving surface. And there was concern that they might be confused about that and try to shy away from it. So we had originally just shown the permeable pavers that we were proposing, which are block or brick type configuration, to coincide and terminate with the 35-foot building setback. But actually, talking to the town engineer, it was generally agreed in that discussion that it would be better to have it extend at least halfway up through the drive aisle, and at the termination of those permeable pavers, we're going to put a painted stripe, and as you can see here on the figure depicted, directional arrows to encourage the drivers that we want them to drive there, and we want to encourage that there is adequate two-way traffic in the front of the store for safety and for folks, accessing their cars and whatever, getting out of their trunks, loading merchandise, et cetera.
Mr. Chairman, through you, what color are the pavers?
They can be made a variety of colors. I imagine they could be made green, but I'm not trying to be cute. Really, we want the drivers to understand that it's a driving surface. So, traditionally, when this is done with a typical blacktop paving, then a typical kind of brick red color is chosen, or a brown color, something that still is inviting that it's a driving surface. But that is still also clearly, an extension where it's clear to the drivers that they can traverse over that. And, to the grass paver issue, and I know I saw an illustration or a picture that the town planner had provided. I'm not sure if that's the ones that you guys are talking about, but basically a prefabricated mesh where grass grows up through it. I don't want to be, dismissive of the material, but and it may have some, ratings that they publish that they say that, trucks can drive over it, traffic can drive over it. But I really think that for the delivery vehicles that we're looking at, and also for longer term snow maintenance and plowing, that type of material is not going to last. And the permeable pavers that we proposed, they too have operation and maintenance difficulties. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but we believe that those will have a much more durable and lasting effect. And again, in the interest of encouraging safe vehicle maneuvers in a two-way direction aisleway, we think it's important that it's clear to the customers and visitors to the store that they can drive on this material.
What size vehicles are gonna make deliveries?
We, in consideration of some of the other preliminary comments that we had from the town engineering and town planner staff about interior landscaping, in order to make the maneuvers, we're looking at a wheelbase 50 so that it will avoid what are to be proposed landscape areas on landscape islands. But the truck is basically making a 180 in and then backing up with the tailgate towards the trash dumpsters and recycling dumpsters. And
where do they take in deliveries? In the front door?
in that southwest corner there.
So you really needed that other
You're
curb
not
cut.
you're not even going over this with a truck.
Well, the truck, like Ms. Sullivan said, the truck would come in like this.
Yep.
And then do this. So
exactly.
It would be doing a 180 coming in because, this is the southbound side of the highway.
So we're looking at a wheelbase 50 to be able to accomplish that. And these deliveries are done off hours. It's not when they're open for business, obviously.
Well, we're defeating the purpose of the 35-foot green space if we can't get it green.
Well, we were approaching this that, permeable pavers, they are an extension of our low-impact stormwater design. And I know it's a stretch to look at and think of it as a landscaping element, but it is part of what we're trying to accomplish to satisfy multifacets of the town's regulation requirements.
Unfortunately, this site is the way it is. We're trying to get it into conformity with with today's standards. It's nowhere close. You're getting a building on here that'll function. We still need to get 35 feet of green space. We could just say we want the 35 feet of grass and not allow you to do anything to push the building back or make the building smaller. I mean, we can't be held accountable for the condition of the site because the site is too small for the operation that you're trying to do here. We're already approved one application with the same situation where we want to make sure that we're getting our 35 feet green space, and that's going to be a standard for this commission up and down the turnpike until we get that boulevard look that we're trying to accomplish. And eating into that even by 11 feet doesn't accomplish that because you don't own the property. Although there is a great amount of green space in front, it's not your property, it's the state of Connecticut's property.
I understand that, sir. I was merely trying to illustrate in looking at the proposed redevelopment holistically, we really are taking into account that we're looking to improve the landscaping and the curbside appeal for the site.
I think you need to do some more research into what kind of pavers you could do, grass type, where the grass grows through the pavers, so that we get that green look from the turnpike all the way to the 35 feet.
I understand. We'll take a look at that. Thank you.
One other thing that I'd like to bring up and need a clarification, and I don't see on here where the billboard is. I need to, for the record, I need that, a clarification as to what's going on there with the billboard.
Yes,
is
we
it
did.
on this property? Is it not?
It is.
Who owns it?
I don't know who owns it, but I can try to get that information. I know that there is an agreement between the current owners, and there's an easement for the billboard. The billboard is to remain. The agreement for the billboard will survive any proposed transaction of the site and redevelopment of the site. And one thing that we discovered when we did the survey to prepare for the base mapping for this application is that the sign is actually not conforming with the easement. So there's an attorney that is working on revising that easement and submitting it to the town so that it'll match with the actual location of the billboard. But we've kept the proposed redevelopment away from it. So the billboard will stay in its current configuration and will survive that. But we have revised the plans to try and depict that more clearly.
What's it, the existing one's not on the proposed easement, proper easement?
I'm sorry, say it
The
again. sir?
existing billboard's not on the proposed?
It is non-conforming to the easement, yes. I don't know how that happened, but it's outside of the easement.
And the easement,
It's basically kind of just, it's kind of rotated a little bit. I mean, it's not something, ludicrous, but it's just not conforming with the easement that was recorded with the land records.
and it wasn't with the existing, or the existing owner, it was with the previous
Yeah,
owner?
I think it predates. I don't know for certain, sir. I'm sorry.
So I think the chairman wants to get all that for the record on the
Absolutely.
history of it. Thank you.
Yeah, I can try. Yeah, like I said, we identified it through our survey, and I understand there's an attorney. I'm not sure if it's the attorney working for the current owner or working for my client, Garrett Holmes, but we had provided them a sort of meets and bounds description that would encompass the billboard in its current configuration. It is essentially approximately the same size. It's just basically on a different north-south angle.
Does the billboard show on your site plan?
We do have it on the site plan. I'm sorry if it's not clear.
Where is it? You know where it is? Can you see it? Where is it down there?
Well, I think we all know where it is, but I don't see it on the drawing here.
Very light.
No, that's the
Yeah, I
easement.
think it's
That's the
maybe-
easement.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just not.
It's not on there.
But we'll-
Some of those lines are representing legal boundaries of different kinds of things, like the sidewalk, the driveway setback versus the building setback. There are a lot of lines there, but none of them are the sign, the billboard.
Did they propose to make changes to the billboard?
No.
No, because they can't. You start playing with the billboard, we're gonna want it down.
Yeah,
Doesn't even comply with the
I can't speak to that, sir. I'm sorry. We were told that the billboard, it was to stay in its current configuration, and that an attorney was going to pursue correcting the easement that described its boundary and its current configuration. So we're not proposing touching it, changing it.
Is it on this piece of property?
It is.
It is. But this property owner does not own the billboard.
I don't believe so, no, sir.
Need to get a clarification.
I think it's in the land records, I think, as to the original agreement for placing the sign and the easement for it. And like I said, unfortunately, the easement description that's on the land records does not actually bound the position where the sign is. But it's very close. It's very close, but it does need to be adjusted to be proper.
Our regulations and in the town of Newington, if we could get rid of the billboards, we would. That's part of what we try to do. If a billboard by act of nature came down from a hurricane or something, you can't rebuild it. We won't let you rebuild it.
I understand, sir.
They're non-conforming.
And again, we're not proposing to do anything with that billboard. As a matter of fact, I don't think we legally can.
Okay.
As part of this
We want to
project.
see that as part of the record.
Understood.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
If I may ask another question?
Sure.
We will do the research as you ask about the paving options, the grass paving options. One of the things that we're looking at also from comments that came back from engineering is about the adequacy of our landscaping. So this is again in keeping with your comments, sir. We're looking at the number of parking spaces available on the property. We're looking at this property where we have, the building has a warehouse component and a retail component. So the 28 spaces was derived from ascribing, I believe it was 13 spaces to the warehouse. And or the commission, if you might entertain, ascribe the number of parking spaces to the maximum number of employees, which is 10. And we were encouraged that you would prefer to look at the larger number. But if there was some flexibility, and if the commission might entertain, if we were able to reduce back to the 10 parking spaces plus the 15 associated with the retail, we would have more space to be able to convert parking spaces into landscaping.
Mr. Planner, hang on.
Excuse me. To be frank, I didn't follow that. I understand his point, but when I did my evaluation of the original plans, I noted a discrepancy with how they calculated the parking. So I'm not sure if Mr. Sullivan is addressing that issue or a different issue. But I'm not sure how eliminating any parking spaces could improve the amount of landscaping. Were there any specific parking spaces that you had in mind?
We would look, probably towards the, ends of the rows.
And how? Oh, could you come up and point to something? So, because you're speaking very generally, and I don't know where you mean.
I'd be glad to. Thank you. So, for example, we might be able to target a space here. Or
and eliminate. When you say target, you mean eliminate?
Eliminate.
Okay.
Yes, to convert to landscaping, perhaps here, or here, or here.
Okay.
Is this for your 10% interior green space?
Exactly.
You're right, correct.
Exactly. To try and meet all the requirements for your.
Or you might, where it says 13 there and there's a checkered
Right,
mark.
you might be able,
You could just take that and make that one large
Absolutely.
green space
Absolutely.
so that he can comply with this 10% green space.
Trying to get there, exactly.
Right.
So
Okay.
if the commission might entertain that.
Okay, I understand your question. Yeah, I can look into whether that's possible. Yep.
This is not really the way that we calculate the parking for these type of things. It was my suggestion when I met with the town planner that these type of operations have a warehouse component.
Significant.
That's how we were able to make this project work.
And we're grateful for that.
At all.
Yeah, we're grateful for that.
It doesn't work if you went by the regulations as they stand today, taking it as one big piece, as a retail operation. So my suggestion, in talking with the planner, that we've determined that this operation is partly warehouse, and we're able to reduce the requirements for the parking for that portion of it. We know these type of operations. There's several in town. We know we got an experience as to how many cars are there during the day, how many customers at any one time. This is not a high volume, 50 people at a time. If you get 2 or 3 cars in there, you got a lot of business.
Right, and I thank you, sir. I thank you for saying that, and that's why I hazard to mention this in this discussion, because if we can hopefully come to an agreement that's satisfactory to the commission with the next appearance here, then that would be fantastic. Okay. So we think there's some flexibility to reduce some more spaces because we don't see that same high parking demand as you just described.
You work with the town planner, and if he comes back with a favorable to the commission, then we'll look at it. But give us our green space that we want.
Yes, sir. I'll work hard. Okay. I'll work hard on that.
That's going to be a key because we've already stretched this thing to allow you to put this project on this. But we want to see this project. We want this piece redeveloped. We want this piece to be done. But we have to adhere to the 35-foot. Because if we don't adhere to it here, we're going to run into problems all the way down the turnpike as we get redevelopment of some of these older sites that are right up where the pavement goes right to the turnpike, where there's no green space at all.
I understand, sir.
Okay. If you could get us that, we could be more lenient on some of the other things.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The, I'm sure you know it, that type of comes in plastic.
Yes.
But it also comes in concrete.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of
Yeah,
that.
and again, I don't mean to be dismissive of
No.
it, but we're just looking at,
Yeah.
that's gonna be breaking and crumbling and very difficult to maintain. But
And-
I'll see what I can come back with.
Okay, and I understand that you're kind of worried about the transition and you.
Yes.
And you might not want to bring the, if I could.
Go ahead.
When people come in here, you might want to have the grass area back a little bit so that they understand that they can pull in this way, because I can see where you might have, where people are confused a little bit. Oh, can I drive on the grass? Can I not drive on the grass? So I can understand that. If it's moved back a little bit, it might be helpful.
Oh, okay, sir. Well, we, in the interest of trying to keep the lowest profile, for,
Yep.
we tried to hold tightly to the
Yep.
turning radius. So if I understand what you're saying, is that we could maybe even cut the corner a little more generously
Yeah.
to encourage the
To
drivers.
encourage the people to go in there. I'm trying to,
Oh, I appreciate
to help-
the comment. Yes, we
Yeah.
will look at that. Thank you.
Okay.
Work right, Mr. Planner?
Yes. Yeah, that would, if that's acceptable.
Yes, because we are concerned about driver safety and encouraging safe parking and maneuvers in the parking lot. We don't,
If you ate into that island a little bit more, that would not be a big thing for us.
again, with the grass paver type
Right.
material. Okay, yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
If you decide on it, if you had a sample you could bring in so that we could look at it, it would be helpful.
I'll try, maybe, I don't, this time of year, I may not get like a living, breathing grass sample, but, maybe some
Get
rendering.
the actual pavement that
Okay,
shows the
okay,
cutouts
material.
in it and everything, so
Okay.
we'll see what we're getting as far as that green look. Now, a good example is West Farms Mall. They have, and I know trucks are running over that on a constant basis, and I know they plow it.
It's difficult, though. It is. But
Okay.
unfortunately, it's a tight site.
It is, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the comments, sir.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, what do we do with this now?
No action, just move on to the next item.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, good night.
That ends the new business portion of the meeting. Old business, Newington Ridge Preserve.
I have no new information. I sent emails to the developer after the last meeting, expressing with the commission's interests, and with no response, I then sent the applicant, Mass Construction, another email on Monday asking him what his intentions were and asking him if he was planning on coming to the meeting tonight, and I did not get a response.
It's gonna get to a point where he's not responding and then we'll respond by pulling his bond. That's what it looks like it's gonna end up being, because if he's not responding to the town and to the staff as to what his intentions are to come in, he's supposed to have been here for the last 3 meetings and he hasn't shown up. We're giving you
Well-
a good an example of why he can't show up.
Well, in fairness to him, I went back through the minutes, and it's not clear from the minutes that you physically wanted him to physically be here, but you definitely wanted to hear from him. You wanted a report from him as to what his plan was for doing the site plan modification. But again, in fairness to him, it wasn't clear that you physically wanted him to be here, which is why I asked him then the other day in an email if he was planning on coming, but I didn't get a reply. I didn't get a yes or a no.
Commissioner Sobieski.
Yeah, Mr. Planner, I seem to remember that he said he was going to be here at the next, 2 meetings from when we started,
Okay?
okay? And he was gonna meet with the residents up there to get everything addressed, to button it up for the winter time. And then start with a plan as to how he was gonna repair what up there. Now, as Chairman Aida said that, he hasn't responded to you. We're almost kind of back where we started again, basically. That's my concern.
I'm surprised that the people from the reserve aren't here.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to suggest that the town planner send a letter to him telling him that he is required by this commission to be here at the next meeting to explain and give him a list of everything that that we want to hear from him on.
I'd like to just add to that, make sure it's a registered letter that he has to sign for.
And I would copy the Newington Reserve Condo Association. We all set with that, Mr.
Yep,
President?
let me just, yep.
Petition for public hearing scheduling, want to read the petition 0218?
Petition 02-18, zoning text amendment, section 3.4.10, and section 9.2, Amy Berube, 172 Indian Hill Road, Newington, Connecticut, applicant contact.
Mr. Planner?
Okay, the application has been received. I discussed it with the chairman and sent a copy of the amendment to the regional planning, or the Council of Governments. So if the commission wants to schedule the hearing for it, it can be done at your, the second meeting in March, 2 meetings from now, which allows for the full amount of review time by CROG. I don't recommend a lot of discussion about the amendment itself, because we don't want to be in a situation where someone could say things that might be considered premature. So all I'm going to do is just leave it at, I recommend that the hearing be scheduled for the second meeting in March. I'm sorry, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but the fourth Wednesday in March.
Commissioner comments or remarks? Commissioner Payne?
Yeah, my only concern, and not with the subject matter at all, but proper notifications for the public for this amendment change. How do we let all the residents know that this is going to happen? Our normal practice of putting it in the legal records and a few other things that we do really just doesn't
I'm
cut
sorry,
it.
I've been distracted. I misspoke. This is the 14th. No, the hearing could be at your first meeting in March, which is the second Wednesday, which is a month from now, roughly a month from now. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said the second meeting. It's the second Wednesday in March. Thank you.
So I don't know about the other commissioners. I'm just wondering whether or not, how do we do the proper notifications? If you remember in the past, you know, when rear lots got changed or the auto regulations got changed, that people didn't really get properly notified. Matter of fact, later on in the minutes, later on in the meeting, I was going to talk about maybe we need an amendment, our own amendment to the regulations that puts some sort of qualifications for people that come in and make an application for some sort of change in a zone or anything. That, for instance, if somebody wanted to make a change in the PD zone, we'd want to make sure that the applicant would have to notify everybody that owned the PD zone that that was going to take place. We don't have anything like that.
No, and I don't think any town does. It would be a challenge to figure out a way to send individual notice to every property owner in a given zone, because we'd be talking about, you know, hundreds if not thousands of property owners. What we do is we do legal notice in the newspaper, which I know nobody reads, I know. We post it on the town website, which sometimes people see, but I don't know how often people see it. I can certainly reach out, I can certainly contact everybody who spoke at the public hearing on the actual special permit application, because we have their names and addresses. I can send notice of the hearing on this proposed text amendment to everybody who spoke at the hearings. I can do that.
Those aren't the people we're trying to get. I mean, those people already know what is going on, and they'll be at the amendment hearing. What we're looking for is that this affects every homeowner in the town of Newington. It affects me, affects all of these commissioners, affects everybody in the public. Anybody who owns a house, it affects you, because if this amendment goes through, could possibly have one right next door to you. So this affects every resident in the town of Newington. I don't want to have where if we did approve something like this, to where after the fact, when someone came in on Main Street and they wanted to put it in and we approved it, that everybody in town said, well, we didn't know this was happening, and that's the problem. is that there can't be, it's not the people that are directly involved with the application, it's all the people that are not involved that own property, that affect their property and the value of their property and their standard of living and their quality of life. It affects every single taxpayer, every single homeowner in the town of Newington. And without proper notification, I think we're doing a disservice to those people.
Well, maybe what we could do, or what as amended, what the text amendment can do, which is to add another use that's allowed by special permit in a residential zone. We can do, when we have the public hearing on that proposed amendment, the commission can suggest to the applicant that they add a provision in these regulations to provide for some kind of enhanced notice to nearby owners. Because at the moment, there is no notice to nearby property owners of a pending home occupation permit, except for the sign out in front and the legal notice in the newspaper, which nobody sees.
Yeah, but this
You might be able to.
This application does not address this is not addressing a home occupation. This is a whole new area that would affect every residential zone in the town of Newington.
Right, and if the commission adopts it, someone would then come in and apply for a special permit under that new regulation.
But the horse already left the barn at that point, because if we approved it, if we had approved it without notification, people can come back and say, well, when did this come in? No one was notified.
You mean approve the text amendment or approve an actual application down the road?
Text amendment.
Well, there isn't, well, the entire state of Connecticut does it this way. There is no expectation on the part of any property owner that the town would never change the regs in their zone without personally notifying them. Nobody does that. There's no reason to do that. Nobody does do that. What you do is, if you want specific notice, warning, if you will, to be sent to neighbors within a certain distance of a future proposal, then write that into those regulations, that the applicant for such a use would have to notify all owners within 100 feet or 500 feet or something like that.
Yeah, I understand that.
We did that on Alumni Drive. Excuse me for Mr. Payne. We did that on Alumni Drive. What I was trying to ask was, can we put this on NCTV when we have the scrolling? You know, they scroll what's going to happen this coming up.
Sure.
Can we put that on here and say this is a text amendment that could affect all residential areas?
We could
Only a thought.
Yeah, we could do some work with NCTV. We could also do some, talk to the reporters and stuff. But I know our budget is pretty low. Can you double check to see if we have any money for budgeting for advertising? So let's say, for example, we wanted to put a big notification on the front page of the Rare Reminder. Can we obtain enough money to do that for this application?
I'll look into that. Yep.
I think it's important for people to know what we're doing here. I mean, we got to be transparent with the people. I don't want to go into a situation where we approve an amendment change and then have it come back and people come back to us and say, well, we never even knew about it. How can you make a change like that without notification? We say, well, we did the minimal amount that's required by law by putting it in a legal notice, which you can't even read without a magnifying glass in the newspaper. That's one thing. We have to let the people know either we got to do the legal notice, we have to do some kind of press releases. This is too big of an issue and affects too many people. It just does not affect one person. This affects every homeowner in the town.
We can do that.
Is there a Facebook page?
Yeah, we can do that. Yep.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
just so I think the amount is less than $1,500, just so to give you an idea, I believe. And I can confirm that. I can double check with a Rare Reminder on what the costs are for you, so that you have an accurate number to pass on.
Anything else on this, on setting of the, do you think that's enough time?
A month? Sure.
No, not move it off till the last meeting in March so that we get
We
back
gotta get-
all of
No,
the
the
other?
first meeting in March.
I understand
Oh.
that, that's where you would like to put it, but if we moved it to the last meeting, wouldn't that give us
Right.
more, huh?
I don't think we have the time.
You do. You've got 65 days from
We gotta
today
have
to
enough
begin the
time
public
to-
hearing.
Yeah, well, we need the time too, we're getting we're getting a lot of information from the town planner as far as what other towns do with this, with their,
Plus getting a notification out to people. So I'm not happy with getting this on the schedule for the first meeting in March because I think it should be towards the end of March.
Well, let me remind you
Or-
that that time is kind of the essence because the clock is ticking on the other application, and you're going to have to make a decision on that other one within a certain amount of time.
Well, I'm not gonna be rushed on it. I mean, they'll have to give us another extension.
There's a limit to how much extension, and that's what we're running up
Well, that's
against is the legal limit to how many extensions they can, or how much extension they can give.
then we,
Give you.
We weren't in favor of that.
we could move that off the table without prejudice. And they could come back. We're not gonna be pressed into making a decision on this when we've, we brought it to the point where we're giving them as much time as they need to do a proper text amendment.
Maybe we should wait until the next meeting to set it on the schedule so we can see how far we are with, getting additional information and
Well, the additional information has nothing to do with this. The additional information was for the
I'm talking about
pending
the,
application.
I'm talking about the additional information about whether or not we can get funds so that we can put the proper ad in. That matters. So that's what I'm talking about.
Well, my recommendation is that you schedule the hearing for the first meeting in March. And I think that's a month from now. I think that would give us ample time to use all these other efforts you've mentioned, which are all good ideas, to put out the word so that everybody in Newington knows that there's gonna be a public hearing at the second Wednesday in March. And we'll do the advertisements that you suggested, if it doesn't bust our budget too badly.
Mike, what do you think? Do you think we haven't, you know, there's some information that has to come back to us.
Yeah, I understand that, and, the planner, in this case now, would have, he'd have a month, just about 30 days to get us the information, and I think, you think you can do it,
Well, it's not so much information you want, and I hear what you're saying. You want to put the word out to everybody in Newington that there's this
yeah,
this text amendment that's pending. I think we can put out a lot of information in the next 30 days to let everybody know about it.
Stanley?
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it too.
Okay. We'll put it on for the first meeting.
Thank you.
I don't know what the rush is because the applicant is still working. She has the right to continue her operation, so I don't see it as a detriment to her business as it stands now, but
Okay.
we'll take,
Chairman?
yeah.
As far as being a rush, and that the applicant is able to continue with her business, but I don't know, if I were in her position, I think I would want to get it settled right away, get it off my mind, get it off my back, so that, she knows everything is the way it's supposed to be, and then, she can go on.
Okay, well, we got a consensus that you want it on for the first meeting, so we'll put it on for the first meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Planner.
Okay, so, next item then is town planner report. And let's see what,
On that same item, you'll get back to the planner and expediently to give them information as far as what it would cost for the notification, because we're gonna have to go to the council, for the town manager to see if we could get that money. I think it's somewhere between $1,200 and $1,500 to do a full-page ad.
okay,
And that goes to every house in the town of Newington,
the rare reminder.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
You could do it as.
You and I
could
can
do-
talk about that.
Yeah, you could do it as an insert, or you could do it as the front page.
Okay, so the town planner report for February 14th. The sign on the tree at Lewis Street, I did send a letter under the chairman's signature to the Conservation Commission. It will be on the agenda for them to discuss at their next meeting. I have no further information beyond that. Okay. And then the next item on my report is staff proposed amendments. At the December 14 TPZ meeting, I recommended that TPZ consider revising a number of items in the zoning regulations. TPZ agreed to consider several of them: the gas station, convenience store, minimum parking requirements, purpose statements, certified as-built for completed projects, and site plans for zone changes. Attached are the proposed amendments for all of these except for the purpose statements, which will be rather lengthy. And I'll just go through these quickly. Okay, the first one, making retail use in association with an approved motor vehicle service use a permitted use in the industrial zone. That would clarify that someone who gets a special permit from the commission to open a gas station in the industrial zone will be able to have the usual convenience store retail type of accessory activities that gas stations always have nowadays. So that's just kind of bringing our regs up into the 21st century. They would need to get the special permit from you for the gas station. This would just make it clear that they can sell all the stuff that gas stations sell nowadays. The parking regulations, it's come to the commission's attention a number of times that our regulations try to combine too many not really that similar uses in one category. For example, the current parking requirement for theaters, places of assembly, amusement, recreation, and education. Under that category, we've approved dance studios, gymnasiums, all kinds of things that aren't really comparable. So what I'm suggesting we change it to is one space for each four seats, or 9 linear feet of fixed benches. And I obtained that from another town that had regulations similar to ours. And I'm suggesting we delete the current regulation, which talks about the number of seats based on the fire marshal's rated capacity. Because although that sounds nice and transparent, let's just use whatever the fire marshal uses. In reality, I spoke to the fire marshal, it's not that simple, because the amount of occupancy that a fire marshal will allow varies a lot depending on things like a sprinkler system. And that introduces an element of variability that goes way beyond your ability to deal with when you approve a site plan. So I'm suggesting that we change the reg to 1 space per 4 seats, or every 9 linear feet of fixed benches. And then create a new category for fitness center, dance studios, and gymnastic schools, 1 space per 200 square feet of exercise area, or 1 space for each 4 students as determined by TPZ. Because I've gone back through the history of the commission, and you've had both kinds of applications, and depending on what the situation is for a particular applicant, one method might make more sense than the other, but this would give the commission the ability to decide which formula to apply on a case-by-case basis. Also, self-storage. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
The first area where it's a theater's place of assembly, amusement, recreation, and education, what if there's an amusement type operation, there's no seats and there's no fixed benches? Then what do we do?
Oh, okay, good point. All right, let me make a note of that.
And that's a drastic change from what it is now. It's almost, we're giving them double the amount of, we went from 1 space for 2 seats to 1 space for 4 seats.
Yeah, we're reducing the amount of parking because from my research, I think our regs require more parking than many towns. So that's why I'm suggesting we reduce the number, the amount of parking. But that can certainly be discussed in more detail at the hearing on it. But I'll look into your point about what if there are no seats at all? What if it's, well, I guess like a skating rink or something, which, well, even a skating rink would still have some seats. I'll look into it, but I'm not sure if there's anything that wouldn't have some seats.
Yeah, but you can't base it on some seats if that's not the primary way that, you could have 1,000 people on the ice and 2 people in the stands.
But
We're gonna
the
base it
stands, but if the ice was big, good example, if the skating rink is big enough for 1,000 people, then the stands would be pretty big too.
Yeah, but the people are going there to skate. No one's, how many people are going there to watch? I mean, it's a
Hockey game.
I don't know, it just,
We gotta look at that closer.
Okay, fine, and I'll look into what if,
well, how many towns did you look at?
well, I have a book which is kind of old now, it's about 10, 15 years old, which lists the regulations, the parking requirements of a bunch of towns all over the country. And it really is amazing how much diversity there is. One town will require 1 space per 100 square feet. Another town will require 5 seats per 100 square feet. It's not scientific at all, is what I've come to decide. It's kind of based on local culture.
The region.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we'll certainly discuss the specific numbers at the hearing, and I'll look into what if there are no seats, then what? Okay.
I mean, for instance, the skating rink, I mean, I think they have ample parking over there. I mean, we should be somewhat in guide with that, and if that was part of the regulation, I mean, I'm not sure how that was approved, but that should be a good guide for us over there.
Yep, good idea.
When I look at, when I think of this, I think of the Bolorama. I think they have, that's pretty much in line with the amusement, recreation type of an assembly. And I think they have ample parking. They also have a bar and food operation there. Mike, how many, they have parking in the back, don't they? Behind the Bolorama?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be
parking on
interested
3
to see
sides.
what kind of parking, because they seem to
Yeah.
be able, they have leagues, I mean, it's,
Probably a couple hundred spaces there.
yeah, I would like to see how we figured the parking there, because that's an operation that works.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right,
You don't
I'll do
see-
that.
You don't see people parked on the Berlin Turnpike, and they have leagues, and they have, so apparently there's ample parking.
Right.
I'd be interested to see how,
Yeah.
how many, the size of the building and how we figured, how they figured the parking for that operation. Because that's pretty indicative as to what amusement type operation is, or recreation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll tell you though, I mean, that is a huge parking lot, and naturally, I wasn't around when it was designed, but even so, I don't know if you've been up there on a Saturday night or during a league. Sometimes that parking lot is full right up to the barn in the back and along the back.
I bowl on Thursday nights up there and it's full.
Maybe there's not enough parking.
Well, no, what I'm saying, Frank, in front
Yeah.
and the sides are, but you can go way in the back, there's still plenty of
Yeah,
parking.
so, yeah.
And then as the leagues change, people leave, other people pull in,
Yeah.
it works. I mean,
Yeah, it seems like an operation that's been working for a great number of years, and
No,
we've never had any
it's well run up
complaints.
there.
Yeah, I would say at
Problems
least
there at
50
all.
years, Frank.
Yeah.
You know that.
And they also, you gotta remember, they have a bar operation and a food operation out of the same
Well,
place, so.
The food operation is,
Please remember to use your microphones, because NCTV, please.
the food operation is basically, just a snack bar, so people get something to eat and go out in the lanes, do what they do, and then they leave. So that's kind of like what, it's not like a full-blown sit-down place to sit down and eat with.
Right. I would look at something like that to see what they use for numbers, how they came up with the numbers to make
Right.
that work, because that's a huge building too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll do that. Then the next parking regulation change I suggested is the regulations currently allow warehousing. The regs don't specifically speak to self-storage, which is a pretty popular use these days. Now, in the past, Newington has approved a couple of self-storage facilities, and in going back to the minutes, they just used the warehouse requirement, which is actually a lot more than you really need for self-storage. In fact, the research that I found, again, is kind of all over the place, but 1 space per 25 storage units was what one town used, and it seemed like the median between what some other towns wanting more and some wanting less. I could also actually, now that I think about it, I could look to see what other towns in the Newington area, like in Berlin and other towns, to see how much parking they require for self-storage. But we really should have a separate requirement for self-storage versus warehousing in general. And then the next change that I recommend is that we no longer require someone who's applied for a zone change to give us a full-blown site plan for what they would do if they got the zone change. The commission can still certainly require a conceptual site plan with a zoning permit application, but the regulations require a full-blown site plan, which is really kind of excessive. And you'll have just as much information if you if you insist on the applicant for a zone change giving you a conceptual site plan, and if the conceptual site plan he gives you is not enough information, ask for more until you are satisfied that you have a sense of how this property could be developed. But to make him design it with the drainage and the parking and all that is just, I think, excessive.
I think, I know that people have come in with parcels and did the master plan for a parcel and did not give you the full-blown, all the water requirements, sewer and stormwater and all of the nitty-gritty. They gave you conceptual, here's where the building is, here's where the parking is, this is where the landscape, that type of a site plan.
Right.
Not a full-blown engineered site plan.
Right, and that's
And
perfectly
I think
reasonable.
That's very reasonable.
Okay.
And that'd be helpful to anybody that's looking to come in.
Right. And then actually, while we're in there, I'm adding another sentence to the endorsement block, which actually I have all the applicants put this in anyway, but it'd be better for the regulation to include it, that it lists the expiration date, that once the plans are approved, they expire in 5 years. And this way it's right on the plan. So anyone who looks at the plan, there's no question in their mind as to when these plans expire. I'm sorry. That's right. No, the change that I displayed here actually talks about a document that needs to be submitted once the project is complete. This regulation, if adopted, will require the applicant to give us an as-built once the work is done. That's what this one is that I was displaying. This was what I was talking about when I was talking about how taking out of the regs that a site plan needs to be submitted with the zone change application. Because these are all the zones where that is currently a requirement. And that's it. So if the commission has no objection, I'll send this draft to the regional planning agency and we can begin the hearing either at your pleasure in March, either it would have to be no later than the second meeting in March.
Let's send this
no earlier than.
Let's send this to CROG, and then when we get a response from them, we'll set the agenda, because I want to get through through this other application.
Okay.
Before we get into anything new.
Mr. Chairman?
These are not life-threatening type things. But
Sure.
We'll get to it in April.
Mr. Chairman, I talked earlier about coming up with an amendment where the applicant has to do notification depending on what it is. I'd like to know whether or not the other commissioners are interested in that. For instance, let's say somebody came in and they wanted to propose the elimination of drive-throughs. Well, then they would have to notify all the drive-throughs before they came in. And it would be the applicant's responsibility to send that notification out to those people. If somebody came in and they wanted to eliminate the rear lots, for example, then they would have to notify everybody in the rear lots. Or if somebody wanted to come in and propose a change in a particular zone, then, do their best to notify as many people as possible in that particular zone. I think it would be something that would be beneficial to getting the word out to people, and it would take the burden off this commission in the future, and it would put the burden on the applicant.
Okay. And I can reach out to my colleagues and see what other towns do along those lines.
Stanley?
Yes, we did that with the Alumni Road, if you remember, Commissioner Payne. We sent out over I don't know, 300?
400?
400, I can't remember
And
the
we
number.
sent over 300 letters out, but that was because
What was
the
that? I don't know what you mean by alumni road.
Alumni Road issue.
proposed, when they came in for the proposal, we
the
sent.
traffic signal.
The town was the applicant, basically, so the town did the notification because we were very concerned about letting the people know. So all I'm saying is that when there's a private application coming in, that applicant would be responsible. If we could come up and craft something up and put the burden on the applicant. Sometimes the applicant is the town, sometimes the applicant is a private party.
Stanley, what do you?
Well, I somewhat agree with Commissioner Payne. Thing is, using an example, if you wanted to change a lot of the R zones to R12 and R20 zones, you're gonna send a registered letter out to each individual?
Well, we're saying, that there's other means. We talked about one of them, for this application would be, something, a reminder that goes to every household in the town of Newington. We're talking about a $1,200 bill. That's what they're talking about.
Oh, okay, I thought we were back to sending out
Specifically
letters.
to letters, no, I don't
Okay,
think
that's
that's
right,
practical, because there's, I don't know, 9,000 households in the town of Newington, so.
I guess it depends on how many people have to be notified, and it would be to the satisfaction of the commission. So if there was a tremendous amount of people that had to be notified, then you would use another means of notification, such as the newspaper. Or if it was just 100 people, then they could do letters.
Mike? No opinion on it?
Not really, no. I mean, I like the idea. I have nothing to add, let me say that.
I like the idea also.
Okay, I'll look into that.
Yeah, I think it's, the way the situation in the town of Newington is, where we're so well built up that a lot of the things that come before this commission are problem areas, and people are looking to make changes to our regulations, and sometimes good, sometimes not so good. But I think that we have to be more transparent to the public so that they know something that affects them in such a big way, particularly homeowners, where their whole life savings is probably in a home, their retirement is probably their home, their property is everything to them, and we could be making changes that affect the value of their property and their standard of living. I think it's important that people have the opportunity to come here, not just the people that are directly affected by a change, but the people that could be affected by a change.
Right.
Anything else? So I think that's something that we'd want to look at too when we look at scheduling this.
Okay, and then I just asked you this evening to add under my report
Yeah,
a
the
bond
bond
reduction.
thing.
Yep.
Why don't you just give us a quick,
Right.
and we'll make a motion.
Right, this is a little, actually, it's a 6-lot subdivision, 2 lots on Culver Street, 4 lots on Rockledge, right. It was approved quite a few years ago. A different developer came in and finished it, and he's almost done. In fact, it'll be coming before you for road acceptance in the next couple of months. We have some $50,000 on hand currently, and he's completed everything except for some $6,075 worth of work. So I recommend that the bond be reduced, and there's a draft motion in front of you, that the bond be reduced to $6,075.
Mr. Secretary, you want to read the motion, please?
Draft suggestion motion, bond reduction, Harvest Ridge subdivision on Shady Hill Lane. I move to reduce the performance bond on Harvest Ridge subdivision from $50,500 to $6,075. Findings: the staff has inspected the site and found the work to be substantially in compliance with the subdivision plans approved by the TPZ on March 12, 2008. The remaining items include street trees, iron pins, concrete monuments, Mirrorstone certification, drainage agreements, drainage certification, and an as-built Mylars. Conditions none.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you, and that's all I have.
Okay, communications. Stanley, you got anything?
No, the CROG, I just got recently a email from CROG, which I forwarded to all the commissioners about what's going on.
Any other communications? No? No. Public participation, anyone wishing to speak at this time, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please. Anybody? Remarks by commissioners? Any remarks at this time? I have no closing remarks. Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. See you in a couple of weeks.
I wasn't that far off. I said 8:30.